moving on to our second story. So as of Thursday,
Yeah.
um,
So basically, like the second story is all about the Twitter acquisition.
where the
Right,
Prince
yeah.
of Saudi Arabia has joined Larry Ellison and Binance by investing into Twitter. So initially, the Saudi royal Prince Al Walid bin Talal bin Abdulaziz Al Saud rejected the offer made by Elon Musk for 54.2 American dollars per share, clarifying that as one of the largest and long-term shareholders of Twitter, he doesn't necessarily believe that it adds up to Twitter's value. And he then reconsidered the offer as of Thursday, and he shared his excitement through Twitter, saying, "Great to connect with you, my new friend. I believe you will be an excellent leader for Twitter to prosper and maximize its great potential." Also adding, "Looking forward to direct $1.9 billion in stake in the new Twitter and joining you on this exciting new journey." Earlier on Thursday, Musk also revealed in a filing for SEC, in one of his SEC filings, that he managed to secure more than $7 billion US in funding with the intention of taking Twitter private. What were your initial thoughts when you heard about the Prince reconsidering?
Well, firstly, this whole story is wild.
Yeah.
Like there's just a lot to it. I think no one took Elon Musk seriously. Why? Because he famously said and got in trouble for saying that he was going to take Tesla private a couple of
Yeah.
years ago at 420 a share or something like that. So no one really knew what he was at, whether he was a passive investor, whether he was joining the board and then he went off the board. Like, people know what a genius Elon Musk is, and maybe he doesn't think things through like other people, but he's one of the biggest users on Twitter. He's got over 80 million followers, and he actively uses it, and and it's a passion project for him. But Elon Musk doesn't do things just as toys, right? Like, people are like, "Oh, you're saving the planet with eco-friendly cars or transport, and you're taking us to another planet as well. So why are you messing around with 100 whatever it is now, 288 characters or whatever?" But why? Because the reason he justifies it is he fundamentally believes that it's part of freedom of speech, and it's part of communications, and it's part of how it's toxic and how we can change that for how humans can kind of get on better with each other. So that's his rationale of going into this. But he's not doing this as a like, let's just do this for the good of mankind. Like he's a very good businessman, and Twitter went public 10 years ago, and its share price hasn't changed. It was like $30-$40 10 years ago. It's $30-$40 now. It's up to $50 last night, and he put the offer in for $54. They make about $4 billion a year. Facebook makes $100 billion, $120 billion through advertising. It's, for what it is, it's really under monetized, and he thinks he can extract a lot of value. So Prince Al Walid, when he heard that Elon Musk is taking it private, he was like, no, right? Like, you're not taking it private. It's $40 a share. I know how valuable this asset is. So don't take it private, because I'm not selling my shares. Because what happens when if the board approve it, and the 9 or 12 people on the board approved his takeover, for 44 billion or whatever it was, and he said 9 or 12 billion, but he had to raise that from external people. So then he's taken it private. He delists it off the stock market. Every shareholder kind of has to accept that $54 per share. So if they came in, Twitter went to as low as, Twitter was down in the 20s for years, right? So if they came in early on the shares, they'll get a premium and whatever, but they can't reinvest in Twitter. So when he saw this, he was kind of like, A, I think it's got more value. I don't want to sell out now. B, I'll have no role in the future of this. And I kind of like being involved in Twitter. I've been a backer of it from day one. So but the reason he's changed is because Elon Musk needs funding. And the Prince is allowed now as part of the private funding. So he's like, oh, of course I'll go back in, because this is my way of being involved in something I think has got more intrinsic value. And it's also a vote of confidence for Elon Musk. Like, he's going to, Tesla's share price were down massively yesterday because people think he's going to spend too much time on, Twitter. And one of the reasons why Jack Dorsey left Twitter for the second time last year is because the activist funds guy thought that Dorsey was running two companies. He was CEO of Square and he's CEO of Twitter. And that's one of the reasons why they thought it wasn't extracting a lot of value or growing revenue. So they tried to kick him out. And he said he's leaving for the better good, but he was forced out. And but now all these people seem to think that Musk can handle running a third entity. So that's what's happening there. Now, you know, you mentioned Larry Ellison, there's a few other people involved. There's a lot of big names. There's a lot of big, you know, Sequoia. There's lots of big investment groups involved, and clearly they believe that Elon Musk can do a good job.
With him taking it private, besides affecting the shareholders, how does it impact the other stakeholders and the business in general? Does it cause any changes?
Look, a lot of media is saying like Elon Musk is running Twitter. So there's a CEO of Twitter, can't pronounce his name. He's an engineer guy. He's very good at products. Power. Yeah. Anyway, so he's really good, but he's not as well known. He's not a superstar CEO, right? Yeah. So people are easier able to talk about Elon Musk. But actually, up until now, up until the announcement that he was going to be hands-on as CEO, he was only going to be an owner. So, you know, so it shouldn't change much. Like, you know, you'd have to ask some employees of Twitter, will the culture change or whatever? In theory, it shouldn't change much. An owner's an owner, right? Bezos owns the Washington Post. It doesn't change much on the day-to-day. Yeah. You know, it doesn't massively change. However, this will, because Elon Musk has very, you know, strong views, not only on Twitter product and how companies should be run. He's very opinionated about capitalism and work. Like, he's one rule where if you're in a meeting, like we had a meeting yesterday evening in Shahir, and there was 6 or 7 of us in the room, and if someone wasn't contributing, he says you should leave, but he says it's not rude. You know, it's more efficient. Get up and get out. Yeah. Like, don't just sit there. Like if you go to a meeting, you think you're going to be part of it. If it turns out that there's only 2 people talking, and you're not really needed, get out. Yeah. Like, so this is the stuff that he does. Like, he's got lots of rules and opinions about efficiencies and empowering people to make decisions and things like that. So I'm sure it's going to change things. He's talked about charging governments and companies for Twitter, which he should. Like, it's a value, and charge for it. You know, so you know, personally, if I was, you know, if I had the option to be in part of the private company as a stake shareholder, I would totally be part of it, because I believe that he'll extract a lot more value out of Twitter. And all the tech stocks are down at the moment. Yeah. You know, Twitter's 15 years old, but like, the future is the internet. So we've got another sort of, you know, once it comes out of this cycle, it might take 3-4 years to get back to all-time highs, and then you could see a lot more growth on Twitter.
Do you think it has the potential of making as much as Facebook and the other social media platforms?
No, Facebook's a juggernaut. I don't think it can. Like, I think that's a stretch to make it that amount of cash. And Google, but it's only really Facebook, Google, and Amazon have about 40 billion in advertising. But all the other ones, they're all about 3-4 billion. Like, even like, if you look at Instagram and YouTube, like, it's in the lower sides. Like, Facebook's ad serving platform and Google's overall revenue, mainly AdSense and search, they're just different leagues.
Yeah. But yeah. One last question. In terms of freedom of speech, how do you think, with the Saudi Crown Prince backing this up, how is this going to change freedom of speech in general and in Saudi?
I don't think Elon Musk fully understands freedom of speech. Like, he came out with a tweet last week saying, you know, he was all like, I'm going to take over Twitter and I'm going to back up freedom of speech. And what he meant was, like, he's going to stop the bots, stop the fake news, and he's going to, you know, allow people to say what they want to say. But then he was like an afterthought, oh, but like, as long as you stick to the laws. Yeah. And then, but people, the problem with freedom of speech as a catch-all phrase is people use that phrase to interpret how they want to override laws, and they don't really respect laws, because they just use that as a catch-all. I'm going to say what I want. I don't care if I'm disrespecting you. I can do freedom of speech. You know, so I think he, you know, that's why he backed it up and he said, as long as you respect laws. And then other people said, yeah, but what if I don't like those laws? they didn't say it like that, but like their worldview is different. It comes from a different culture, whatever. So I think, you know, that's the perennial problem of social media, and I don't think Elon Musk is going to necessarily solve that. And yeah, I mean, now the critics are saying, oh, you're doing freedom of speech, and then you're letting X people who I don't agree with view of this catch-all phrase involved, blah blah blah. But I think I think the point of like having an open forum of discussion with respect of laws is actually a solid platform, you know, like, but people can understand this in different ways, and people will say it's all for profit and etc. So, you know, to be continued, basically.
Fingers crossed to see how it goes.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to our last story.